Welcome to module number 12 of this course. In this course, we will try to deal with different agencies which are related to tea production, marketing, and export. And also, we will try to learn some of the issues which may be useful if we want to do tea cultivation in a commercial way. Aim and focus of this session particularly will be to look at what are the different agencies and stakeholders engaged in the sector. Secondly, how do they operate for raising efficiency, employment, and well-being of the sector? Third, what are the existing regulations and how do they affect the functioning of the sector? And lastly, we will try to highlight the constraints and what more can be desired or even expected for improvement in the sector. So these are the four broad themes that we will try to discuss in this session. And particularly, we will look at the Indian scenario while we discuss these four themes. And if we look at Indian scenario, then we have two broad sectors dominating the tea sector. The first one is the big estate sector, where we have the large companies doing the tea cultivation commercially, and these are the tea estates. If we look at these estates, first of all, we have to notice that these estates have a colonial history. It's a long drawn history where these were developed, these were established by the colonial companies, and then gradually these were owned by Indian stakeholders as well. So these has a long history. It has got own processing units and marketing linkages. And if we look at the total tea production, then we see that 40% of the total tea production in India are actually marketed by these estate sector, the big tea companies and big tea estate sector. Consequently, we have a small grower sector as well, which we call small holding tea sector. And in India, we call holding small if we have acreage less than 10.13 hectare. It comprises the 33% of the Indian tea sector, that is, the small holding sector occupies some 33% of the total tea sector in the country. And the feature is that they do not have any processing unit or market linkages of their own. They have to depend on the others, particularly the big estate sector for their tea leaves and tea marketing. And also they have to depend on bought leaf tea factories where they have to supply that raw tea leaves and then they get the prices for that. And however, even if they have some constraints, they have played a very important role in the tea sector as a whole. And if we look at the role of the sector, then we see that it is actually, the covering the most of the things. And then we will see that this is the most vibrant sector at present. And as we have said that 40% of total tea production are marketed by big tea estates on their own. The remaining 60% are marketed through tea auction centers across India. And there are numerous agencies involved in the marketing and export of tea in India. All are registered under Tea Board in particular, and they do the marketing and export for the entire country. Now, if we look at the issues of efficiency, particularly in Indian context, then we have some common issues which are shared by the big estates as well as the small holding tea growers. The first of all, it is that gradually we see that there is an increasing cost of production and there is also a falling or low level of profit. And then this actually consequently results in a low level of investment and R&D, which affects the overall productivity and efficiency of the sector. So on one hand, the cost of production is increasing. On the other hand, the profit is falling, and this results in low investment subsequently, and also the low investment results in low R&D, research and development, and that is why the whole efficiency and productivity of the sector are suffering. It also reflects the poor labor standards, which related to labor productivity and labor conditions, and all these affect adversely the global competitiveness, and both state as well as small growers are suffering from these common concerns. Apart from these common concerns, we have also got the other issues. Just to give you some sense that if you look at the idea of the falling rate of profit, then you will see that the cost of production of made tea per kg is about 73.9, and the price it fetches in general on an average through auction is actually 65.8. So this is what is the situation, that if you have the higher cost than the auction prices that it can fetch, then naturally there will be a question for profit, and which is happening right now. At the same time, if you look at the distribution of cost, for instance, that what are the elements of cost, then you will see two the ideas coming up very sharply. One is the production cost, and other one is the power and packaging cost. So these are the two costs which are increasing, and the percentage wise it is actually close to the 40% and also the 21% for all these things. So therefore the cost is increasing, the price that is drawn through auction is limiting, and which is adversely affecting the profitability in the sector. And in terms of cost, the two costs are coming out very sharply. This is the total production cost, a field cost of production, and the power and packaging cost. So this is what is happening right now. Besides these common concerns, we have also got specific issues of the tea estate sector. The one of the most important issue for tea estate sector is that poor field productivity. As I have said, that field productivity, that is in the field, what is the product that we are getting, yield rate, that is very, very low, and it leads to high average cost per kg, and it also results marked by low labor productivity, and all these things together results in overall inefficiency. These are the specific issues of the tea sector, that is estate sector. The small grower sector, if we look at, then we have some specific issues as well. The one is that this lack of quality standards, because it is assorted kind of activities taken up by large number of people. Therefore, there is a lack of quality standards, adhering to the quality standards. This is one. Second, then resulting from the first, the non-remunerative prices, because they do not conform to certain quality standards. Obviously, they do not get the remunerative prices for their products. Also, they are characterized by very poor labor standards, and the lack of investment, of course, is one of the main issue for small growers, because their acreage is limited. Profits are not that much because of non-remunerative prices, and therefore they do not have enough investment on their own. So therefore this sector, even if it is very vibrant, these are not having enough investment to make this sector productive or efficient as to the desired level. So these are the issues of efficiency in Indian context. It has got some common issues and also the specific issues shared by estate sector and small grower sector. Now, if you look at the little deep into why this is happening, what are the causes of low productivity, then we can identify four important factors of this low productivity. First of all, we have seen, particularly in the estate sector, that these are very old gardens. We lack replantation that is required, and therefore the tea bushes are very old, some 40 years, more than 40 years old. If we look at Assam, which is the main growers of tea in the country, we see that 47%, almost half of the tea gardens are very old tea gardens. They have got bushes as old as 40 years. So therefore, if we do not have replantation, obviously the productivity is going to suffer, and that is precisely happening. Next one is the ecology and negative externalities factors, that use of pesticides and then other chemicals and so on and so forth actually adversely affects the environment, which has got negative externalities, and which also affects the health of the workers as well, and therefore this health of the workers coming in the big way in the labor productivity, and therefore these things have adversely affected the productivity, low productivity of the sector. The next one is the cost of power. As we have seen that cost of power and packaging is the second most important cost for tea gardens in India, and this is because of the not having regular supply of power to the tea sector. For that, they have to install generators and then high cost of fuel contributing to that cost, and therefore we got high cost of power. So what we need actually the uninterrupted power supply, which is lacking at present, and this is actually affecting very adversely the competitiveness of the sector in terms of cost reduction and so on and so forth. And lastly, the capacity enhancement and R&D, etc. This is most important, because we need to have optimum utilization of existing capacity, existing the plants and machineries and all. So therefore, if we do not have that, and then we have to, one hand, you have to use that optimally, and then secondly, we need to enhance where it is required. So on both counts, we are not being able to achieve what should have been achieved. So therefore, this is coming out as one of the most important factors of low productivity. So therefore, 4 issues we can identify. One is the very old gardens, lack of replantation. Then second one is the ecology and negative externalities. Third is the cost of power, uninterrupted power supply that is required, which is not there at present. And capacity enhancement, R&D investment, sufficient investment in R&D. So this is another thing that we need to have if we want to improve the sector. So these are the 4 things that we should consider if we look at the low productivity, present low productivity of the sector. There are a lot of agencies involved in all these issues. We have Tea Board of India, we have Planters Association, we have tea companies, we have Tea Research Institute, and also government departments and government agencies, and then other, the other CBOs. So therefore, all these have to have their shared role if we want to address these 4 factors of low productivity. Everybody has their own way of dealing with it, own role of it, and therefore these are the agencies which are to be looked up to if we want to address these factors of low productivity. Now, if we look at the production and productivity of the sector, then we will see that there is an increase in the production of tea in the country. In 2002, it was around 1,647 million kg, which has gone up to near 2,000 million kg into 2020, and almost 50% of the total production is coming from the small growers. So that is why I said that this is very important to understand that small grower sector, small holding tea gardens are very, very important when we look at Indian context. 50% of the total production in 2020 are contributed by this sector, and marks an increase and total production of 47% during this period. So therefore, there is an enormous increase in the production, largely contributed by small growing sector, and that is what we need to understand. And this is the one of the most important role of small holding tea gardens in the country. It is contributing immensely to increase in production of tea in the country as a whole. Now, if we look at the yield rate or proxy for productivity, then we will see that alongside the production, the yield rate is also increasing. That is per kg per hectare. If we look at 2002, it is 1647, and then also it is increasing. And if we look at the increase by 20%, and we have got also the identification that yield is more than double in small grower sectors, that is 2926 kg per hectare, than that of the estate sector, that is 1488 kg per hectare. So it means that not only the small growing sector is actually contributing to the increase in the production, but also it is actually contributing in terms of increasing yield rate for the sector as a whole. So it is almost double the estate sector. And as I have said, that the estate sectors are very old, so that is affecting their productivity. The small growing sectors are very new. They are taking up new lands for production. Clearly, it is contributing to their high rate of productivity for the sector. India shows significant increase of area under small tea garden. That if we look at the data for 2004, then we will see that it was very little, and then it has increased to enormous over 2 lakh hectare in 2020. So therefore, not only these tea gardens, small holding tea gardens are increasing their acreage, it is also contributing to a large extent to the total production, and most importantly, it is contributing to increase in the productivity. So that's the role of the small growing tea sector at present. Now, does it mean that the shift from estate to small growing tea sector presents a case for structural change? That whether the Indian tea sector is having a structural change in terms of shifting the focus from the big estate sector to the small holding sector. So, we have a lot of questions coming up. The why is it happening? Is it because of the inherent flexibility of the sector compared to the estate sector, which is more or less rigid in terms of production regime? Compared to that, the small holding sectors are relatively flexible in terms of recruitment of employment and other activities. So does it contributing to that kind of the role for depending on the small sector? This is one. Second, that what are the factors explaining the growth of better performance of the small holding sector? Is it because only new plantations are coming up, or something else? That is another question that we need to answer. And third question that we need to see, how do the increased productivity and efficiency of the small holding sector related to well-being of the labor? I think that's very important to look at the issue of overall scenario in the tea in the country. As we have seen that small growing sectors are having a greater role in this whole tea cultivation scenario in the country, and it is also characterized by relative efficiency and relative improved productivity. Does that also reflect an improved well-being for the labor engaged in the small growing sector? I think that's very important, and that is to be looked into. And then fourthly, how does the improved production performances relate to economic performances such as profitability or rate of return on investment of the small growing tea sector as well? So what are the need for regulatory support in that context? This relates to the question of the remunerative prices for their leaves. For instance, the raw leaves, they do not have the processing unit. They have to depend on the big estates. They have to depend on the BLTFs, that is bought leaf tea factories. So therefore, unless they get remunerative prices, in the long run, the profitability of this sector, that is small growing tea sector, is going to suffer, and that is where we will be losing whatever competitive advantage that we are particularly reaping from this sector, and that is what we need to look. into. And then biggest question that whether the crisis of different kinds make the sector vibrant, resilient, and that is where we need to direct all the supports, the making this sector vibrant, making this sector resilient, despite the different crises. I think that's the focus of the policies, and that is the focus of all the government supports and all. I think that's very important to understand. Now let's look at the tea market as such. Tea market in India have two components. One is the internal market. Almost 83% of the tea market is actually internal, and then there is an external market as well. We export tea. 17% of the total tea production are exported to other countries. Now, so far the internal market is concerned, we see that there is a vibrancy in the internal market. It is increasing. We can see that from the data that there is an enormous increase, or at least substantial increase, in the domestic tea demand, and that is contributing to the sector. It is actually making this sector vibrant. And so far the external market is concerned, we do not see that kind of vibrancy of late. It is relatively stagnating. You can see the data. For instance, suppose the tea export in India is actually has declined over the period, and the price is also has gone down. And so therefore, compared to the vibrant internal market, we are having a rather stagnant external market. So that is one area of concern. We have the countries. If we look at specific countries, then we see that the CIS countries, that is the Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan, they almost share some 25% of the export, and Iran is having the 22%. But we have seen a lot of volatility regarding this because of COVID-19 and also the recent war with the Ukraine by Russia. So all this is affecting our tea export. Thirdly, you need to understand that what kind of tea are being exported. We export most of the export as bulk tea, but we also get some other kinds of tea as well, the instant tea, packaged tea, tea bags, and these variations rather than bulk tea are actually getting more prices for that. Destinations are also different, but they get also more prices. Most importantly, we need to understand that world market is increasingly becoming competitive. China is a big factor. So therefore, if we want to overcome these challenges and then dominate the world market, then we need to create some market niche for ourselves, and that is what is required at this moment. And we need to also understand that large number of exporters are engaged in the tea export business, and Tea Board lists around 100 such agencies. So these agencies are important, but most important is actually to understand that what are the challenges coming up and how can we address those challenges. One of the best way to deal with those challenges will be to create a niche market for ourselves, creating some unique selling points for our tea brands, and that is how we can create some impact in the world market. At the same time, we should not ignore the domestic market as well, because it is increasing and it is promising. So therefore, those who want to do commercial tea cultivation should eye on the internal market that is coming up. At the same time, should try to create some external market niche for themselves if they want to dominate the world tea market. Now, let's look at some important points for all types of growers. So we have to recognize that there is an increased competition in the sector. So that is the main thing. So we have to recognize and we have to find ways to deal with those competitiveness. Quality and product diversification can be one way to create market niche. So we have to create a good quality. We have to be very quality conscious, and we need to create diversified products so that we can have our niche market, and then we can overcome the challenges of competitiveness. Significance of R&D and investment. So that is very important, because if we want to ensure quality and ensure product diversification, we need a lot of R&D activities and sufficient investment in that sector. Importance of small growing sector, this is well recognized and well documented, well evidenced. So we have to think something out of the box to create a situation for them to compete. Ensuring remunerative pricing and profitability can be one way to start and begin with, and creating an enabling ecosystem with required policies and support. So the government's role is basically to create enabling ecosystem in terms of policies and support can be extremely important. And then we can have some areas for focus like investment, R&D, pricing, profitability. These are the areas where government can enter and create a good ecosystem with required policies and support. Now, since the quality is important, we should also try to understand that what are the agencies involved in quality assurance in tea sector. The TRA, Tea Research Association at Choklai, Assam, is one important agency which can contribute immensely. It is already, contributing in terms of creating some innovations in land management, finding some ways of cost reduction, making some hybrid and cloning of required trees. It is finding ways of increasing productivity and also looking at technology transfer to the small growing sector, which can be useful. So this in a nutshell covers the contour of the main topics of the discussion for module 12. So what we have learned in this module is that we need to recognize the emerging tendencies and emerging shifts that is happening towards small growing sector. Small growing sector, we need to identify the specific issues like the along with others, what are the different issues that the sector is facing. We have seen that in terms of production, the performance is good, but we need to convert the production performance to economic performances in order to make that sector vibrant and dominant. And lastly, we have seen different agencies, how they can contribute in creating that kind of a situation for the tea sector as a whole and small growing tea sector in particular, which can be of immense use to all the tea growers which are willing to join the sector. So with this, let me conclude this module and thank you very much.